Bonus!
Piper Leo! Crew, what the hell is going on? Oh, look out! Piper, now!
Here are these words. Here are the rhyme.
Crew, Piper, page, book!
Hear now the words of the witches.
Keep it going, Phoebe.
Hear now the words of the witches.
The words of the witches. The words of the witches.
Crew, Piper, page,
Hear now the words of the
keep it
witches.
going, Phoebe. Keep it going.
Hear now the words of the
Keep chanting.
Words of the witches.
Hear now the words.
The words of the finish the story.
Crew, Piper, page, book! Keep chanting.
Hear now the words of the witches.
Keep chanting.
What ass backward spell did you guys cast?
This is Kevin, and welcome to Words of the Witches.
Hear now the words of the witches.
Piper, page, book!
The words of the witches. The words of the witches. The words of the witches. Hear now the words of the witches.
Keep chanting.
Hear now the words of the witches.
Hello, welcome to Words of the Witches. It is me, your host, Kevin, and this is the first episode of a 3-part back-to-back bonus episode saga on moral alignment in Charmed. We will be doing one on evil, good, and neutral parties in this series, addressing their hierarchy and what it means to be in their particular group. Today, we will be talking about evil, and I have with me Ethan Hinkle as my guest. Ha! Hello.
Hi, I'm so excited to do this. This is going to be so much fun.
Yes, you are creating quite a stir, quite a name for yourself in the Charmed community with the things you do. So tell everybody about your amazing.
Well, I'm just an artist like most. I feel like Charmed is something that is so creative in and of itself that it's inspired like generations of artists to just start like making stuff and doing stuff. So I'm just one of those people. And I just fixated on the Book of Shadows. I love it so much. I think it's like the coolest object ever. So I feel like anything that you like, especially when you like the object of desire, almost like the Lord of the Rings, like the Ring of Power. It's like the Book of Shadows has that allure to it where it's just something that you want, inherently. Yeah. And so I think along with so many other people, like you've got your book, and all the other people that do. Yeah. You've got one of Wayne's books, right?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are some top-notch books.
He'll be coming on the podcast at some point too. At first he told me he was nervous about it, but now he agreed to it. So I just have to find the right place for him. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also a little nervous about it too. I've never done like a podcast, so it's something, but it's all fun. So I'm so excited for it. But yeah. So with my book, I spent just like so many other people just spending time like obsessing over the show and the book and all that stuff and made my own book. So
yeah. And you've been getting down to the nitty gritty. I know when Nicholas was on, he shared pictures of the actual books. You're like, I can edit and modify my book now.
Yeah, it's so crazy. So here, I'll actually show you I have mine right here.
Great.
I had to put it together for this specific moment because I had it opened, but I've got mine.
Beautiful.
Right,
gorgeous.
Yeah, like get the lighting right so you can see it.
Yeah.
And so I one of the hardest things about the book is that like we don't have any like really good reference. We can see it in the show, but like nothing candid has never been out at like a museum or anything. So it's really hard to like recreate something, especially like the Book of Shadows, which is probably the most extensively developed Hollywood prop in all of Hollywood history because it's like it was like a character of the show, So when I saw your episode where Nick was on and I saw like there was just so many candid pictures, and that's really where the truth of the book comes out because you can see it in weird lighting and it's not color corrected because it's on the show and all that sort of thing. So I even got some also like other secret photos that he had and other things that he'd seen. And so I've been using that to create a totally new book. I've got a second one that I'm making right now. So I have like a Patreon and I post, videos of going through the whole process of it. And I'm like right now I've probably been doing it for like I think it was since March of this year. And I've just been kind of slowly working on it. um, and I'm at the paint job of the cover, like where I'm actually coloring the book, the outside of the book right now. So we're pretty much through the cover, like we're a large way through it, but it's such an extensive process that like it's gonna take forever. But when it's done, it's gonna be like
Yeah, that's pretty
amazing.
awesome.
It's gonna be so cool.
Exciting. But yeah, on top of that, you've done like the window. I have one of your windows there. Love
Yes, I'm like
it.
a little maker. I just make
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
And those patches. Ah,
Yeah,
so
I have some here. There's a few new ones that I haven't like posted about that I so like with my Patreon, like the upper tier people get I make the patches, they vote on them, like what they want me to make,
oh
and then
sure.
they get them sent every month. So like so you've seen like I have the manor,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty cool, and then obviously the Book of Shadows,
Yeah, those are the
which
two I have. I still have to get the spirit board one. I still have to get some of the other ones,
yes.
but
So we have I'll send all these to you. These the spirit board, and then we have the amulet,
yes.
and then we have the Dominus Trinus wand,
Beautiful.
and then
That's
we
so
have the
cool.
Hand of Fatima. So it's really fun. It's just so much fun to make these,
That is
and
so
the way
great.
that people get to vote on it and all that sort of thing.
See, I got a Letterman jacket in college for doing theater, of all things,
Yeah,
and I got my
yeah.
letter. But if I had that, because I didn't do anything with it, if I had all those patches, I'd be like, "This is my charmed Letterman jacket. I just graduated from charmed school. It's fine."
Yes, literally. Like I have so many like friends. Like some of them just post them on like a built like a cork board, and they'll
Oh
just like
sure.
display them. But I have other people that will actually stitch them onto like pants and all this other stuff. And it's just like you can have one place where you just like put all this stuff on there, and it's like it becomes that like that thing, you know. So I
Nice.
love it. I'm obsessed with it.
So, how did you discover charmed? What's your charmed journey like?
So I first saw Charmed on TNT, at the 8 a.m. kind of run that they always do every morning. I think they still do that now. Um, and it was like my sister's friend. I was like, I think I was like 11 or 12, and Charmed had been off the air. It was 2007, so it was like months after Charmed had just finished, and my sister was like, oh, my friend wanted me to watch this show, and then she wasn't really into it, but I became obsessed with it. And so I just binged it. It was like the early era of binging. I would stack up recordings on the DVR and like just binge them on the weekends. And it's also weird because when I first watched the show, I never saw it from the beginning, kind of all the way through. I like started in like I
Mm,
think season like
in the
yeah,
middle.
like 5, where like Rose
Okay.
was there and I started there. And so it was a weird introduction, but like eventually I caught back around to the beginning, and it's interesting because I think when you start a show in the middle and you see the end, it's kind of like you want to go back and see the beginning and how it led up to that stuff. And
Yeah.
they would always talk about Prue, and I'm like, who's Prue? Like, what happened to Prue? Like all this stuff. And then it's weird because once I finish the show, like especially watching the last episode, you get so sad that you're just like, I have to watch. I feel so sad. I want to watch the first episode again. So you start over, and it's this like cycle of just rewatching
Yeah.
it that you get trapped in, and it was the best.
I sometimes wonder what it would have been like if I started from the middle and like had to like put the pieces together and see. That would have been
Yeah,
interesting.
I feel like that's I kind of had the same thing, but I always felt the opposite. I was like, I always kind
Yeah.
of yearned to watch the show when it was like alive. Kind of that's the way I thought of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, when Charmed was on the air, it was like alive, and there was teasers and bumpers on the WB, and you could like watch it and follow it, and like it was an era of television, and I wasn't part of that, especially because I didn't see it then. So I always
Right.
fantasized about what it would be like to see Charmed like actually on the air.
It was a pretty magical time. I mean, it was a in TV in general because TV was totally different back then too.
Yeah. Well, and also the
But
WB, like there was like Buffy, but also just this like there was this attention to like character development and the relationship dynamics that they would market shows off of, like, this person and this person in a love triangle, like, or whatever, and that would be the push to get people to watch the show because people were so like character driven, and it's just
hmm
different nowadays. Like you don't get real good TV drama like that. It was an era that like came and went.
hmm
So
it was an event. But
Yeah.
I guess I am glad to be a part of that. So they could, but we should move on to like what we're supposed to be talking
Yes,
about.
yes. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. So we are talking about evil today. I do have a little bit of a spiel before we get into
Yes.
the discussion, just laying out what evil and morality is like in the universe in general. So in Charmed, morality is not a matter of perception, but it's like an objective absolute. Good and evil are a set affiliation. So they're kind of like the political parties of the supernatural.
Yes. Yes. That's such a key,
um,
yeah, like one of the things
yeah,
I noticed about it was that there are so many parallels to the real world. Like it's like a metaphor for elements of the real world.
yeah, and each has like their own like agenda and their people that do the things underground and they have their purpose and they're like little ants that that do their jobs.
Mhm.
Um,
Like bottom
and
feeders.
yes,
Yeah.
bottom feeders. Ooh,
Yeah.
but everyone is aware of their own political affiliation, and they know how they're supposed to act in that party, but they can switch between the two. Like you can easily be turned, you can change your mind, but
Yeah.
it's just
It's very
it's so
politically
weird.
based, and I think that that's like,
Yeah,
and also if you look at the actresses, like they're very politically minded as well. I think it's part of
sure,
the environment that the show was made in, and it's like that's one of the things I love about Charmed, and the element of the evil is that like the show is meant to kind of like prepare you for life, like show you, give you this familiarity with like the nefarious forces out there in the world that are going to come after you, or that you have to learn to protect yourself from, whether that's when you're in the real world and you're navigating the real world, or in this fantasy setting. It's kind of the same, and that's like it's rooted in a level of truth that comes from our
oh sure,
world, and that's, I think, what makes it so powerful, of a message.
you can see, yeah, and you can learn, yeah. Which interesting though, and Charmed is like, uh, your party affiliation is in direct correlation to your behavior. So like, you are not evil because you're cold and cruel. You are cold and cruel as a result of being labeled evil. Like you,
Yeah, it's almost like
so
you're like a reflection of the party of which you choose to be in,
yes, that
It's like you
informs your
become
behavior.
brainwashed with whatever morality that your party affiliation
Exactly.
is. Yeah.
So it does kind of make things a little less nuanced that way. Well, they want you to see. I'm going to argue because things that we there's things that there's more nuance than they want you to believe. They tell you one thing, but they show you other things.
Yes.
So
Oh my gosh, that's crazy you just said that. Like that's
yeah,
the thing is that like I feel like in Charmed, like that was one of the things I connected the most to it, was that like when I first watched it, and like I was just a kid, and it was such a creative and like beautiful and fun show. But when I started to rewatch it and I got older, I really felt like everything started to take on new meaning. You start to find like significance in
yeah,
all the stories and how it relates to like a world you're now a part of. And it's like the evil, it's like there were it's like decoded in plain sight, hiding in plain sight. They would show you these things that maybe you're not necessarily supposed to talk about, like the power structures and everything kind of outright in TV or whatever, but they show it to you. So you have a familiarity with it. And when you get out into the real world and you face these things, it's kind of like it's almost like it's not your first time. It's like, and that's what I love. That's what I love about the show in that way, because I feel like it it was like a father or a parental figure. Like it gave me that preparation.
yeah, that like education for the world because I didn't get it a lot of places. I consider myself pretty naive in the grand scheme of things. So so it's like, oh, so that's how it works.
Yeah, well, and I feel like exactly the
Yeah,
same way. But when
yeah.
you have something to draw from where you can find the comparison, it's like I would always be like, oh, well,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of reminds a good example is like I always thought the Source and the Seer reminded me of Howard Stern and his like sidekick
Oh my
Robin.
gosh. Yes,
Yeah.
very much
And I'm
that.
like,
Yeah.
and this is all Hollywood. The writers are entrenched in the world of Hollywood and the politics of that. So I'm like, it makes total sense to me that like the source of all evil in their little Hollywood circle was like maybe Howard Stern or his, like whatever. So I'm like, it made sense to me. And I would always relate things back to it, not in like a literal example like that, but in my own life, and be like, you can see the relationships and the power structures in a very basic way that you see in the show, and you
Yeah.
can apply that to your life, and it's helped me, I think, a lot in my life.
Hmm. And I've seen those, when Charmed Stars were on, when Shannon Doherty was on, when Rose McGowan was on. They're interesting, but they feel kind of abusive in a lot of ways, the way they ask the questions. So,
What do
mm.
you mean? What, like what, with like interviews and stuff?
Yeah, like Howard
Yes,
Stern.
yes, I like the
Yeah,
Rose McGowan went on Howard Stern. Yes, I
yeah,
saw that.
yeah. I watched that one.
He was
Yeah.
also raunchy. That's what he was, kind of the like underbelly of like, with all the
Hmm.
dirty, like almost late night sort of stuff. So it's
Right.
like people expected that of him, but also at the same time it was kind of gross. Yeah,
Icky.
it was
Yeah.
icky. And so I felt like that's what they drew on when formulating this idea of like, well, what is the underworld, and like what does that mean to be just kind of
Yeah.
seedy and and icky and evil and all that, you know?
Yeah. Oh, so, and evil uh is mostly concerned with acquiring power and performing acts of cruelty and destroying powerful good beings, harming innocents, and then increasing their influence, I suppose. But uh what's interesting, because I was getting got into it a little bit before, we are told that evil can't love,
Mm-hmm.
that they can't really feel human emotion. Um and demons don't have souls, we know that, but like I kind of want to challenge that.
Okay, let's hear it. I'm really into, because I have at the same time I have very, both of us I think have very like
Yeah.
deep solid opinions about what we see with this. So I definitely want to hear that.
Right.
So okay, let's hear it.
Okay. Okay, and this is something that came up actually on a previous episode of mine. I was in the Luck Be a Lady episode when we covered that book.
Yeah.
Chris kind of got into this, and he kind of made me realize that I can make this my headcanon. So,
Okay. Yeah.
but those associated with evil, I believe, are ingrained to think and behave in a certain way. They're socially conditioned to, feel hate and feel the darkness and not feel really any kind of human emotion.
Yeah.
Um, but I believe they do have the ability to feel the spectrum of human emotion, but choose not to. Either to stay in line with their conditioning or to save face, because they don't want to look stupid, or they want to still be a part of their party.
Mm-hmm.
And if they show that they are not kind of in line, then they'll be killed or shunned or whatever.
Yeah.
So when these unfavorable feelings of love or jealousy or compassion pop up, they just repress it or are in denial about it. And well, I have some examples.
Yeah.
But
Well, okay, let me respond to that, because I love that, because it's almost like if you
Yeah.
flip it on the other end, you look at good, and like when people
Right.
look good, have what you would maybe consider to be evil urges, or they kind of like, that's like a lot with Phoebe. Phoebe was that character that
Mhm.
had the kind of the questioning kind. It was ambiguous with her. She was very kind of likely to be swayed in one way or the other. She was susceptible to evil, um, and I feel like that's more human. I think everyone, it's not about who you are or what you are. It's about the choices you make in life. And I think that
Mhm.
it's like with like, if you were to pick a demon, and like you were pointing out what everything you just said, it's like, I think it also maybe it comes from ignorance. It's like, well, you don't know what love, you never knew what love
Right.
was. So it's like, how do you fathom or express an emotion that you never grew
Don't
up
know.
around,
Right.
And I think there's real people in the real world that, because they grew up in a certain way, or they're surrounded by a lack of this or that, it's a foreign concept to them. So maybe that's where the struggle
Mhm.
is but it doesn't mean it's not
Mm,
possible.
Right. And that's why I think too. I mean, Cole's a special case because he was half human, but
Right.
like when he fell in love with Phoebe, that was like his first ever like exposure to that, and
Yes.
so he became addicted to that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that kind of changed how he behaved since. He went kind of crazy in ways, but it's still
Yeah.
but it's all because he was addicted to love.
Right,
And
right.
so
He used it almost like in the way, I think evil, it's like we look at addiction and all of those things as negative, like sins of sorts, like overindulgence. And it's like, I think he was someone where it's like he did use the love in a way like a drug, to the point where he started to abuse it. He took control of Phoebe, he took her out of her life, all of that. So it's like, but it didn't mean he wasn't capable of love. And It's
Mm-hmm.
like the nuance of that. And I think sometimes in the show, there is that element of like, well, because you are like how they said like with Paige having that like 24-hour window where good and evil could
Yeah.
sway her. I'm like, I think that's a daily choice. You know, you're always susceptible to it, and it's not because of who you are or where you come from. It's like it's the choices you make, you know, which I felt I agree with what you're saying. I kind of argue with what the show had in that way.
Because they tell you that if you're evil, you're evil. If you're good, you're good. There's no middle ground.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
they kind of also go against that. I mean, we've
yeah.
seen. I have some examples. Um, I think of like the Oracle too. Even in Brain Drain, when she sacrificed herself to save the Source,
Hmm.
that's. I mean, he didn't force her to do that. She did that on her own free will because she legitimately seemed to care about the Source, or
Yes,
maybe the greater evil. I don't know, but still, there was still something there.
she had an allegiance to him for
Yeah,
sure. That led her to do that.
yeah. And there's the whole Kira, who was a demonic seer who wanted to become human.
Hmm.
Where if she was evil, why would that desire appear?
Right. Yeah.
Drake, another one, Mercury demon. He started reading books, and he's like, "I want to feel human emotion. I want to be human too."
Yeah.
uh, I don't know.
There's multiple times I think that they like,
Yeah,
and I notice especially with Charms sometimes it's almost like they had different writers coming in and out at times.
yeah,
So it was like I always like there are times where I have to take it with like, okay, it might not match with the original message of the show or the way they set it up at the end or whatever. But if you can tell the arc of what they're trying to say like in that one little moment,
exactly.
but there is a
Hmm.
level of inconsistency where it starts to be like this double standard
Right.
almost.
Right. And maybe it can be both. Maybe there are some that are just pure bred evil and they don't feel any emotion, but I still think it's possible that some can break out of that, and if something happens to them in their life or some experience happens or some emotional like perk up that makes them might want to grow out of that.
Yeah, yeah, and I think so like yeah, I feel like it's do you think that they were too rigid about it when it came to the rule of like, well, you belong to something and that's kind of how they played it? Like you think they should have shown the nuance, like the middle ground where people do sometimes depending on what a demon might go through, like Cole or Kira or something like
Yeah, I mean, because they give us hints of that and they show us that, but they never really gave us the process. Like, I would have loved to see a real like struggle, like maybe sometime before we meet Drake, before we meet the seer, what led them to want to go
to
become
being
human,
open
you
to
know?
it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, what made them shift, or was there a shift? Were they always like this? That would have been a cool story, I think.
Yeah. I definitely think I feel like that's a stone unturned with something they never got around to explaining.
Yeah. But it also kind of just brings me back to like the Manticore baby, that nature versus nurture thing, because that was a
That is
demonic
when they
baby.
did bring the question up, I think, in a little bit that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, a lot of these are like half human, and so a lot of times they argue that there's a demon half and the human half, and so they can go either way. So I'm like, "Ugh, I guess the half human, the half warlocks make things a little bit more blurry, but
Yeah, and that's what so they kind of, I guess the show treated it with a sense of like it was down to breeding. It was like if you
hmm
were half this and half that, then there was a potential, but if you weren't, then like I get it when it's a show, the demons are symbolic. They're like, they're literary devices to represent evil. And so you can't have nuance in that, but you really think you think of it twice. You're like, but can they? They could show that, and they could have done that, which they didn't.
yeah. mm So let's see. Anything else I want to say? I did want to go over the hierarchy a little bit.
Yes, let's do it.
All right, let's see. So, who's at the top of the evil? I mean, source of all evil, probably, right?
Yeah, but you could argue that the seer, because of her manipulation of great power, like I think there was an interesting element that they put there because I always say that the seer to me was the most powerful because she knows how to manipulate great power, and the source is just the king who's in the throne, you know.
Sure. Like you sit there, it's very Manchurian Candidate. Like I'll feed you
Yes.
all the things, I'll tell you what to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And it's interesting because according to Charm de Lore, seers and oracles and dark priestesses like that, they have no rank whatsoever. So they're not low or high. They're just in the ether.
Okay.
Meaning they could be really way above,
Yeah.
or
Well,
depending
they
on
could
how
be like
they
totally out of the like, and that's something they touch on in the show, is that there's this little pocket where good and evil fights, but there's also kind of like another space of which the angel of destiny and certain other ethereal
hmm
elements exist, where it's out of the toil of that battle. So maybe they come from
yeah,
something like that.
yeah, because it's funny because they seem kind of in the background, like they seem very menial and very weak, but they're actually
Yes.
like all the people pulling the strings, and
But
they have,
see,
so it's
to
very
me, that's the
mm,
that's the root. That is real evil. That is someone where,
right.
when someone's just, flamboyantly evil, like the source, he's the king with all the,
Yeah,
all of
you
that.
become a target versus being
Yeah, it's
insidious.
like you are smarter
hmm
than someone who would be so blatant about it. You know how to go
hmm
undetected, which makes you the real threat. You know,
yeah.
so that's like, to me, that's
hmm
even more evil.
I think of something like Nanta in season 8 too. She was really we're working like 30 years with this changeling and molding this demon in a baby and molding him to become like this powerful like ruler, and like because demons, the demonic
We're
underworld or
talking about with
whatever, they
with the I forget the name, but this, it was when they were in like corporate America. Yeah. Okay.
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
um because and they do that, they evil infiltrate the human world in real life jobs, they educate them as lawyers
Yeah. Cole
and
was a
as
lawyer. Yeah.
yeah, and so they really, and judges, they have the demon judge, so they're in our world
Yes.
doing nefarious things in like under the radar. It's crazy. So, but yeah, Nanta is another one I think of for that one. So let's see. So after the source or the seer,
Yeah.
we would have probably the triad.
Yes.
Although I don't know, because sometimes I feel like the triad is even a bigger antagonist than the source in a lot of ways, too.
Yeah. Because if you look at the way the show played out, it was like, well, they squashed that bug, like they got rid of the source, and then, but they still had the triad coming back, and people that were loyal to bringing the triad back, especially in the end. So it was like an issue that really didn't go away. And it's like, I think the root of a true threat is like, if you kill the source and he's gone, okay, well then he's gone, you've vanquished him. But if you have the triad or a different source of evil that keeps coming back for whatever reason, that you start to ask the question of, is this unvanquishable? Because even when it is killed, it's brought back in some way. So
hmm
so I think there's an
And
argument for that.
both, yeah, and both the source and the triad seem to be like, yeah, energies that can't be vanquished
Yeah.
at all, because they always just being reincarnated, or they have new bodies, and like they become a spirit and then gain more power to become corporeal again, and
Yeah, and I also think that's a metaphor for like how when there's an ideology that people subscribe to, then it doesn't matter who sits in the seat. It's as long as that idea is out there,
hmm
it'll manifest again.
yeah, yeah, it becomes a symbol for something that's just always going to be in the world.
Hmm.
Oh,
So at
all
the
right, so we
triad,
got yeah, seer triad or seer triad next to each other either way. Then I would say probably upper level demons.
yeah, upper level.
Is there any,
Remind me. Okay, so it was upper level demons, and then it was lower level demons. Was there a tier in between?
no,
So it was
there's only
upper
upper
and
and lower.
lower. Okay. Um,
And I suppose it could be like between the two, but they don't give you a title. You're just like, you either make the threshold or you're not.
yeah, it's like
Like,
part of the elites or not. Yeah,
yeah.
got it.
So, and high level demons, they have more power than most lower level demons, but they're not like the ultimate evil, but they're like, you know,
Privileged. Their powers. Yeah,
yes,
they're like the
yeah, they're
privileged.
the rich people
Yeah.
and the rich demon.
Yeah.
um, so like I'm thinking of like people like Zanku, or who else was upper level demon? Balthazar.
Did
What
they?
else?
Was there ever a time when the seer was considered an upper level demon? I thought there was a moment where someone refers to her as an upper level demon.
I mean, maybe, and maybe because they don't have any real rank, and maybe it's the part where like she is more powerful than she seems. So I mean, there could be
Yeah, it
an
was like
argument
maybe
for
she had
that.
a
I would say.
face of like, well, she's an upper level demon, but she has this kind of level of power and access and control
Yeah.
of which it's not really labeled, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, this is one thing I also was thinking about is in this page, they talk about level 2 demons, which is
Yes.
what I'm
Right.
confused about. So it's not just upper and lower. This is a weapon of a level 2 demon.
Mm-hmm.
So
What does that mean?
right,
Yeah.
what is it? I don't think they ever really explained that.
No.
I don't think they did.
So, because like Litvak would be probably an upper level demon, and
Yeah.
his minions had the level 2 weapons.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And Litvak
Whoa.
was Litvak on the Order Malorum?
No. The Ordo Malorum was all like a crew, casting
Right,
crew
crewing.
that they
Yeah,
drew.
yeah,
They drew.
yeah.
So this is the moments where I'm like, they should have, like, you know, in the show they'll be like, oh, they should have indexed the book. This is when I'm
Yeah,
like, they should
right.
have indexed.
Color code it with the
with the
tabbies.
stickers.
Yeah.
It was so funny when and this is a quick tangent, but whenever when I went to meet Brian Krause and I wanted him, so I actually got him to write the entire tips for future white lighters page out for me. And
Oh, in his handwriting?
in his handwriting, because I wanted the whole thing just in his real handwriting, and he has such distinct handwriting. So I
Yeah.
was like flipping, looking for my empty page, and I was like holding up the line so much. I felt really bad, but that's when I was like, ugh, I wish I saved the page. It's like you can't find anything. But I could show you that real quick.
Yeah.
Let me show you.
Yeah.
So I'll show you my replica and then his version. I know this is a bit of a tangent, but so this is whoa.
The regular one.
This is the regular one,
Yeah.
and then this is his.
Okay. Wow.
So he's like my handwriting's a little bigger this time, but
Yeah. But yeah, it's funny how the title looks very much
yeah,
the
his
same.
handwriting
The
is
two
so
f-
distinct that it didn't take
Yeah.
much. And I'm like, listen, your handwriting looks exactly the same. Like because he felt so bad. He was like, oh, you know, you know, it's not gonna look exactly the same. I'm like, trust me, just your handwriting is enough. It's perfect. So
Mm-hmm.
okay, so let's get back to it.
I love that.
Yeah.
So upper level demons. So I guess, Brotherhood of the Thorn would count as upper level demons.
Yes.
Well, because it had Balthazar, Clea, Rondak, or Voronak. Sorry, Rondak's something else. Voronak, Tarkin. That was the Shannon Elizabeth husband. And then Raynor, of course.
Gosh,
So that was all
yeah.
the Brotherhood.
See, you're so much more like specifically versed in that. I'm trying to like recall. I'm very good with context, but
Yeah, Clea is the one that had like the glowy eyes that went like and she like disappeared in.
oh
the
yeah.
eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Tarkin was the one with the frizzy hair.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then I would maybe guess the Apocalypse, 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse after that.
Yeah. Because they were so like now they were like operating with a huge operation for a while. And it's so weird. It's so funny. When I was watching Charmed, the first like years and years and years, for some reason they never played that episode on TV.
Weird.
And so I was in college and I was like just watching Charmed, and I watched this episode after like 10 years of watching Charmed, and I see that episode for the first time and I was like, oh my God, a new episode. How, like, just imagine going 10 years with like rewatching
Wow.
everything and then you get a new episode. It was crazy. But Okay, so they, yeah, so yeah, because they were like the head,
Yeah.
almost like the head of a corporation, because they had
Yeah.
such an operation about just creating mayhem and chaos.
They have their suits and their color coded ties, and
Yeah.
they're gonna create the end of the world. And this was right. I remember this aired because this aired right in the peak of like 2000, and Y2K was a huge thing. All the commercials were like, "Oh, the end of the world is coming!"
Maybe they did
like,
that on purpose. Maybe that's like
yeah, it
everyone
was.
had that on the brain, so they're like, let's make the apocalypse.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It was all over. Every commercial was like making a joke about it. It was crazy. The Super Bowl commercials, I remember that time so much. It was a time. Say, I remember Y2K says yes to Kia. That was the car commercial.
Oh my gosh. I
Yeah.
think I was like 4 years old. But see, it's weird. I have such a weird memory. Like I remember things from when I was like 2 years old. So I do remember like watching things and seeing things as a kid where everyone was like freaking out that the whole
Yeah.
world was gonna end. Yeah.
So that was fun.
Yeah.
And then I guess moving on to, so even above lower level demons, I think half human demons are higher up, which is crazy to me. So you have a full demon who's lower level, but a half demon, maybe with upper level demon blood, will still be
Yeah,
higher.
maybe that has to do with, well, is that the case for all of them, or was it like, because Balthazar was like obviously half and half. So
Hmm.
so but he
Yeah.
was like an upper level demon. I don't know. Do you think like was his parent, like, who was it? It was his mom that was a demon, right?
Yes.
So
And his father was human.
right, and
Yeah.
then so was the mother an upper level demon?
I would assume so. Yeah. I
So
mean, we don't know much about her.
right,
She should be in the Book of Shadows.
he
Why isn't
should.
she in the Book of Shadows?
Yeah, that's kind of a, yeah. And so what I'm wondering is there a likelihood that maybe it has to do with like nepotism? Like maybe he's an upper level demon on that half because his mother was an upper level demon. Like are there lower level
Hmm.
demons that mate with humans and have half breeds, but they're lower
Hmm.
level demons?
And I think probably too because they value the human side, and half demons, half humans, because they can better infiltrate the human world that way. They can use them
Right, they're like an
as,
asset
yeah,
to infiltrating the human world.
yeah.
I think that's probably what it is because they've got that
Hmm.
duality of it, so that's seen as like a commodity, and they become upper level
Right.
demons. That makes sense.
Yep. Yep. So I'm trying to think. Like we had, I love. Well, Cirque was one. Sykes was one. Sykes was just like Balthazar, but I loved Cirque so much. He was so fun to me.
Remind me, okay, remind me who.
Cirque is the one from 6 Feet Under that had like that reptile half face that was trying to kill all of his family members so he can become full
Yeah,
demon.
and then when they did the protection spell and they shot through him and the guy had a hole in his stomach.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
I'm up to date on that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just needed like my recall is not as good.
Well, that's because like there are so many names for every little character. I just
Yeah, like I'm not good with names. It's the
yeah,
context. Yeah.
yeah.
Um
So, and then I guess after that would be the lower level demons,
yeah.
uh, base level
Yeah,
demons.
like what was the guy that they could never, I can't remember his name, that they could never remember his name the day Magic died?
Stanley.
Stanley. He was like the
My
coolest.
name shall live forever in infamy.
And they're like, what was his name? Yeah, that one, I feel like he's probably one of the lowest lower level demons, like cuz he was such a like he was just a like he was so cowardice and just like
Yeah,
he was such a follower. So I feel like I can't think of any others that were lower than that.
right. I mean, there was like I can't remember his name now. I feel bad. The guy that was like
Context.
the the minion of Necron, or maybe the minion of the Necromancer. They have a lot of those like minion
Yes,
demons.
yeah, like yeah. Like the one who came and talked to the sea hag and he was like, "Oh, I can't
Yeah.
say that."
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
he'll kill
Yeah.
me.
Actually, he's probably I think you're right. He's probably lower than
Uh-huh.
Stanley. you know,
Yeah.
because Stanley at least like went to fight the Charmed Ones on his own, like thinking he had a
Mm-hmm.
shot when he obviously didn't. It was a suicide mission. But
Right.
yeah. Okay, so then
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any other ones.
I don't know. Like, yeah. And what? Because there are like those elemental demons, like the water demon and like the chakra demon. Where do those fall? Are those lower level demons, or are they just like
Like
soul? They just
entities.
yeah.
I feel like they're almost like, I don't know. Because they didn't really have like a nefarious, like they were almost like animalistic. They were like,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have a conscious kind of attitude, and they weren't speaking or talking or plotting. They were not humanoid. They were kind of just like these
Yeah, the
wild,
instincts and they.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
instinctual things that would just kill.
Yeah. Right. So, and maybe that's part of why they're lower level demons, because they don't have that brain capacity,
Yeah,
that mind to really think for themselves. They just do.
yeah, they're limited by their lack of plotting ability. So they're just like,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the thing. Like it was like the water demon could only kill if you went to the dock and it could overtake you. So it's like, dude, you're not going to kill anyone for years and years as long as no one's around.
Yeah.
So you're kind of capped at that. So I would think that probably is lower than low level
Mm-hmm.
demons, because they don't have the capacity to navigate the
Right.
hierarchy.
Although it still really creeps me out how he can like possess people he's killed and like lure. Oh,
Oh
it's
my
creeped
god,
me
you're
out.
right. Well, that does kind of throw a wrench in that.
Lure them in. Yeah, because they're like, wait, how are you luring people over? And maybe that's just like a instinct too. You know, how, like animals have certain reflexes. Maybe
Yeah.
that's just something it does for survival or whatever it.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I guess in the show, like it presents as almost like, now that I think about it, yeah, the fact that the water demon actively lured someone in by
Mm-hmm.
possessing someone, like it was plotting. That's a level of plotting.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but I think like when I think of the demons and the warlocks, those are like very humanistic, and they've got this kind of culture and hierarchy that you would look at and see kind of similar to like the real world. Whereas the other like more entity type demons, I feel like are just evil by nature, and they try to do their evil deeds, but they're not actually capable of climbing the structure.
Right. Yeah, they kind of like that's where they live and that's where they'll stay,
Right,
kind
like
of
they can
thing.
kill, and they can plot to kill, but they can't actually like obtain more power and do that sort of thing, which is I think the
Yeah.
different, like, because especially with the hierarchy, it's the question of if a demon can actually kill and climb that hierarchy. So it's kind of like within a corporate structure, like getting a job and getting promoted and go climbing up. So it's like when you've got a demon like that whose objective is just to kill and not to like, it doesn't have the greed to consume power and status, then I don't think it's probably high on the hierarchy.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. All right, what would be after that? Dark Lighters.
Oh, yeah, because like Darklighters wouldn't be that high, because they have like one objective. They're like witch hunters. They just want to kill
Mm-hmm.
Darklighters
Yeah.
and
Or
kill
White Lighters.
elders. Or yeah.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of like a pest, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Yeah.
think,
So, and
what do you think? Where would they go?
I think, see, it's weird because you think like they definitely seem more capable than like some of the lower level demons that we mentioned,
Right.
but but they're not. Maybe just because they don't matter so much in the because they're killing White Lighters, which does affect the tip
Yeah, the grand
scales
design.
grand design, because if they kill two more good, they kill White Lighters, they kill witches, that's gonna affect. So I don't know.
Well, it kind of reminds me of like, how, no, that wasn't okay. That was Ames was a warlock,
Right.
and he was able to get the crossbow
of a dark
to
letter
to
by
then
killing him.
well then
Yeah.
to try to pretty much kill all the white lighters.
Right.
So it wasn't like the dark lighters had that ambition. Um so and showing that Ames was able to accomplish that shows that they would have been able to do it but chose not to because they're
Mm-hmm.
not interested
That's not their
in
mission.
getting,
Yeah.
yeah. And also their powers aren't, they couldn't get the power to orb to go up there. So they're kind of just limited to like hunting them for
Mm-hmm.
like evil purposes. So that kind of reminds
Yeah.
me of like the water demon, where like your objective is to kill and to like do evil, but are you really on that objective of obtaining more power and climbing the hierarchy? I feel like they're not.
Right. They're not. They're content with their status quo for the most part.
Yeah, and I think also with the hierarchy, there's a level of like a plateau where like there's a certain group of demons that are just kind of standard and evil and do what they do, and then there's like this elitist structure at the top where there's a hierarchy and they're all fighting for power and prominence, you know.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. But we do know there's like different types of dark lighters too. Like there's different specialties.
Yeah.
So we have like the tracker demons, or the tracker dark letters, I should say, tracker dark letters. There's the soul, sucker. What is it called? Soul spirit killers. That's what I'm thinking of. That's the one that the mummy was. Arnold Vosloo was a spirit killer.
Okay, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, because he's the one that kind of like, puts those feelings of self doubt in you. In Murphy's Luck from that one.
Yes.
So,
and that's interesting because I feel like that was kind of when, I don't know if they were really like sure where they were going with the whole dark lighter aspect. Like that seems like something like a warlock would do, to like prey and to like
mhm.
psychologically manipulate people.
Yeah,
And we don't really see that happen again after Murphy's Luck. So it's like, I don't know, because I think like
Yeah.
with the way the show was like made, it seems like there were certain things that they incorporated or created in these demons that suited the narrative of the episode, but it wasn't followed through to create a full
Sure.
picture, you know.
Fush thing. There was a book that we covered, Mist and Stone, that had the concept of future Darklighters in there, which I thought was very fascinating. How they kind of take people that are more on that evil side of that corruption and, turn them into the future Darklighter.
Oh my gosh.
It's a really cool book.
Well, that would be kind of like maybe like how the water demon is able to possess people. It's like that predatory behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just thinking about it now. I think I know why they would be less than lower level demons, because in some, was it season 8? One of the episodes in season 8, I think. Oh, with the one with Mikkel, with Jung and the Restless. They talk about how a lot of demons think of Darklighters as second level citizens, and that's what made me kind of give me that context.
Okay.
For
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's why. But I don't know. I feel like they could be higher. Anyway, but hey, let's go move on. What would be next? I guess warlocks are next, because they're not like, I don't know. They're more of like human in a way.
Yeah.
But they're like counterpart to good witches.
Well, it's interesting because like it was like presented, especially like Jeremy was a warlock. So it was like it was almost like they were witch hunters of sorts. Like the opposite, the anti-witch kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that with warlocks, because they are after power. They are trying to steal the powers of witches to gain power and prominence. So
move up.
That I actually, depending on the warlock individually, I feel like they would fit at different levels.
Yeah. And they're essentially just supposed to be just an evil witch. Like they're good witches, or they're witches gone bad for just to get more power, and they kill you for your powers. And
yeah. So I don't know. I mean, like do we think that like warlocks would be on its own level, or do you think that demons and warlocks kind of occupy the same hierarchy at different levels, depending on the warlock or depending on the demon?
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a whole separate like list of, there's the demons category and then the warlock category,
Yeah.
and they're not necessarily under. But I think like demons look down on warlocks a lot too.
Yeah, I'd accept that. That makes sense. Like, but I think it's probably has a lot to do with how much power they're able to like acquire, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think demons look down at them. I think they're like, I think they even put like rules like this, that they're forbidden to like attack a demon and kill and kill them. I'm like, that seems kind of weird because I feel like demon just kills evil no matter what. I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah. Like, oh no, like, go squash each other like bugs for no
yeah,
reason.
like yeah. But even
So
in with warlock, there's
we think warlocks
right.
are below.
Yes, I think they're below.
I agree with that. That makes sense. Because I think like demons themselves, who kind of I think run that hierarchy, that would kind of imply that they were at the top and that everyone else is in some sort of subset
Mhm.
below.
Right, and maybe warlocks are trying to kill witches and get more power, maybe to make them the more prominent.
That makes complete sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like they are so low, kind of bottom feeders, that they're like, well, if I can only get the powers of a witch,
Powers.
then
Hmm.
that's how they get it, and whether or not any of them
We can rank
succeed.
up.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's it.
Hmm.
That makes sense.
I like that. And we've had different kinds of warlocks too. We had like the dragon warlock. There's the collectors with their pokey finger
Yeah.
things. um, there's that future warlock. The what's his face?
The one who comes back who takes the book.
No, well, the 3-eyed one. I forget his name.
The one with the
From the truth is out there and it hurts.
I'm not good with names. I'm so bad with names.
I know I'm so bad at this, but yeah, that's the one from the future, and he had his button fall off and stuff.
Right.
Um,
And he would hit people with like his laser eye.
yeah, Gavin, that's his name,
Gavin. Yes.
just came to me.
Yeah.
Weird. But yeah, and you could become a warlock too. Like a witch can become a good witch can become a warlock if they decide to just like go kill someone for the powers, I suppose.
Yeah, which is an interesting element because it's not like I guess, can a witch become a demon?
I don't know.
Because
I mean, maybe it had to be. Maybe it's under some kind of ritual, or you make mix
was like
blood together.
yeah, like was Phoebe an actual demon, being that she was never a demon because I think didn't her evil powers come from the spawn of the source, like when she was pregnant?
Right.
So but witches can become, I guess, warlocks when they make the choice to start acting in evil.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, and there's that one, or even like in Bright and Gloom, that was just dark binding wedding, and it turned them evil. That's just like easy. The whole book turned evil.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I feel like that's kind of a cheat way, but sure, that can happen.
Yeah.
And warlocks can reproduce too. You can be born a warlock.
Right, like okay, so remember those like the anti-charmed ones, like the male charmed ones. What were
The Roe Coven.
Yeah, the Roe Coven. So they were warlocks.
Yeah.
And they were born warlocks. So they were like they were
Yeah.
Yeah.
The antithesis to the charmed ones, which is why I wanted them to be the ultimate battle at the end, but they never were. Whatever, it's fine.
That would have been so good. That would have been so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that warlocks definitely occupy a lower rung, but
yeah,
they do come after witches, which is why, and also it makes sense because especially the way the show kind of progressed, it was like they started off with warlocks, like Jeremy, and in the beginning there was a lot more warlocks involved,
Mhm.
and then it transitioned to being, I think, more about
Into just demons.
into just
yeah.
demons. So it was kind of like as they got more powerful, as the threats kind of became
Mhm.
more serious, that is, I think, a good clue that the warlocks were
Right.
kind of, rookie stuff,
I feel like the last warlock we saw was in Witchstock. I could be wrong, but I think the last warlock was from Witchstock in season 6.
Who was it?
I can't remember his name.
Your recall is so much better than mine, though. It's what was then in which stock? That was when they went back in time.
It's Busey. It's the Busey guy. I don't remember his name
Was
though.
but he was in which stock? He was that when they went back. Was there like a
That was in the 60s. That was the one where they went back into the 60s with the go-go boots and stuff.
right? But where was the? Oh, it was. Oh, right. It was the guy that was kind of
Yeah, well,
plotting with
him and that
and the
him
girl.
and that blonde chick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she was a demon. So he was a warlock.
Was she? Was she a demon? I don't remember either. I thought she was a warlock too.
Well, she threw a fireball, so my brain was always like, okay, she's a demon.
Oh,
Because remember when she was going to kill Penny's
Yeah.
husband, and
right.
she was going to kill him with a fireball. So that made me think.
But who says why can't warlocks have fireball power if they steal powers from witches? They can
Well,
get the power.
I guess they could have stolen the power. I guess, but there wouldn't be any indication of that in the show. So I don't know if.
Yeah, because I know. Well, I don't know if the fireball constitutes demonic or not. Because like Cole was energy ball and he was a demon.
Right, and then he was fireball when he became the source.
True.
So he was
So maybe-
always
Mhm.
energy ball.
But then you can also have witches who have firepower,
That's true.
like Serena with her fingers or Christy with the fire starters. So I feel like if they stole the power from a witch, they can get the fire power too.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, and what was his name again? The guy in Witchstock? We don't know.
That I don't remember. It was that Busey guy, that Busey actor.
Gary?
Nigel.
Nigel,
That was not Gary. It's not Gary Busey. It was Jake. It was the other Busey, the Busey brother.
his brother.
Yeah,
Okay.
or son or
I
something.
know the name
don't
Gary
know how they're
Busey. I don't
related.
know who it was. I forget who it is.
He just got that weird stink face. They just have weird faces all around. It was Nigel and Robin. That's who was in Witch.
Yeah, Robin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was he was blinking, right?
Yes.
So that's what makes
right.
it. That's why he was definitely
that's a warlock power.
right? So, because I remember him blinking.
Maybe Robin was just an evil witch. So what makes you that's the thing. What makes you an evil witch versus a warlock?
Is it just a gender thing?
Isn't
like
there's no-
women are witches and men are warlocks?
no, because we have male witches and female warlocks. That's not a thing in the Charmverse.
Okay.
It's not regardless of gender. And that's I like that they did that too, because that's more representative of real life, when because you can have male witches and
Yes.
so
Yeah. So I'm thinking then. Yeah. So he was the last warlock that we saw.
right.
But that was season 6, and I mean, I don't think there was much before. They were very scattered. It was definitely and obviously, wasn't it Constance that left the show after what, like the first 3 seasons, or when did she leave?
Yeah, she was kind of an executive producer in season 1 and 2. In season 3, she stepped down and she stayed on the show, but she just was more like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
She just kind of helped out, and then she finally left for sure after 3.
Yeah, because the thing is I think that one of the reasons we see that major shift in not only the show's lore and everything, but I was rewatching Charmed, and I was obviously started from the beginning, and you really notice there was almost this inspired approach to the witchcraft and the lore, because it was research, and they really took it very seriously in the beginning. And there's a shift as the show goes on. So I wonder if the reason they had more warlocks in the beginning was because there was some sort of idea in their head that witches hunt warlocks and demons are just evil entities that get vanquished. I'm curious to know kind of why,
Mm-hmm.
But
So, yeah.
so that means that
Uh,
the warlocks would be the bottom feeders, the lower the lower part.
they're the scum of the underworld.
Just the weak ones.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and even like Shadow, a familiar who became a warlock,
Oh yes. Okay. Well, wait.
and so that
Shadow.
happens when you the Black Cat,
I'm drawing a blank on that one. Shadow.
and is in Pre-Witched, right? He turned on Ariel, but he threw smashing all the potions, and then became a warlock, and then they had to destroy his 9 lives.
Oh right, right. See, I didn't. But see, when I was watching that episode, I didn't think of it that way. That he was like that. He was a familiar that turned to a warlock. I always
Yeah,
thought he was like a
yeah.
warlock that was hiding as a cat. You know.
Oh, yeah. No, no. It was because that was her. I mean, I guess that's possible, but I just always assumed no, because that was
It was
her
her
familiar, and
familiar. Yeah, it was like.
yeah,
But I think what like my thought was that maybe he was parading like he tricked her into thinking he was the familiar. Like he played the part of a familiar by turning himself into a cat and being there, but he wasn't.
but they said like too if um when a familiar become changed into a warlock, they have to shed all their past
Oh,
lives, and so because of that, that's how it makes you know that he was actually a cat.
okay, okay. He was actually the familiar. Okay, yeah,
Hmm.
I didn't think about it that way. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Um, what else? I'm trying to look at my notes that I have here.
Well, that's interesting because you've laid out a whole hierarchy, and it's really you're so much more like in tune with the specifics of the lore. So I'm like, it's so interesting to hear the whole like because you have all these just like real reasons that makes the sense of all of it. You know.
Yeah,
So what would you
yeah.
say is below warlock?
Oh, I know who is lower than warlocks.
Okay, who is it?
People who were banished by the source.
Okay, like the
Vampires, or even though see, and this is
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's weird because it doesn't necessarily mean they're less strong or less powerful or less able. It's just status. Like he
Yeah.
inflicts this onto you.
Yeah, there was like what was the like in season 4 there was that like unvanquishable demon where the seer put him in a cage.
The tall man, the thin man, or the tall man.
Tom, yeah, yeah, yeah. Wasn't there like two different pages on
Yeah,
him?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um he would he be considered one of those cuz he was like,
Yeah, right.
imprisoned and he was like
Exactly.
shunned. So okay, that's an example. Or like but wouldn't that include Zanku because he was
Yeah,
kind of
which is weird
put
because
in
he's an upper level demon, but he was banished by the source as well. So,
But I guess when he returns and he has all the power and the cunning, he ranks himself back up there.
yep, it's like boom, right up to the top. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So okay, so the bottom would be it's the banished, like exiled
yeah,
group of people that don't even have a place
right.
in society of the underworld. I love
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so that's all I have. Then that's my ranking.
I think solid. I think you got a solid case there for that.
Okay, cool.
Um yeah, it's like, it's interesting because when I watched Charmed, I feel like it's crazy that you said, especially in the beginning, like how it is such a reflection of the real world and these writers are writing from truth. So when you look at the way that they've like epitomized evil, it's like when they do the corporate things, and you can see there's kind of an underpinning message of like the evil that lives in the real world, and the source and how there's a hierarchy there is like the elites and how they kind of all you know battle amongst themselves for prominence and power. It's like it's really interesting how they've pretty much encapsulated an aspect of the world in the lore of the show,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, crazy. Anything else you want to say about evil?
So like one thing I wanted to mention,
Yeah,
which was, and this kind of goes back to like the whole paradigm in general, like, so I feel like when it comes to like the entirety of the show, like the way that the premise of the show is like, it's like when you look at the story of like Melinda Warren, where like Melinda Warren is a woman who pretty much got tricked by an evil man, and she was, and out of that rate, like, I'm not saying this very well, but it's like, so she was a woman that I think was bested by the evils of the world in her
Sure.
time, and it pretty much, she was tricked and then killed. And obviously she vowed that like no further generation would suffer the same fate, because I think a large part of what she realized was like, I didn't have the knowledge to protect myself, to know how to avoid getting tricked or bested by these people. And so she starts the Book of Shadows as an idea where every future generation will put cautionary tales and information about how to protect themselves against the forces of evil that will come to undermine them, and how to protect themselves. And every generation grows stronger and stronger until it culminates in a enough information where you have this group of girls that have what they need to finally pretty much do what the previous generations never were able to, which is to protect
Mm-hmm.
themselves and fight for who they are and what they represent. And so the evil essentially takes on that meaning of like, you know, when women go out into this world and they're underestimated, and they have people who try to, manipulate them or to undermine them to get their way, it's like, that's kind of the same aspect that they show in the show. These women have the knowledge to protect themselves and to not let themselves pretty much fall prey to the evil forces that come after them in the world.
Yeah.
So it's like, the premise of evil is about those things that not only women but everybody faces um, in their life, that will come to try and, you know, make them compromise their beliefs, make them, give up what they, are fighting for, or who they are. And it's a story about people who are able and capable, they're empowered to the point where they can protect themselves from that evil, and they can be who they are and stand in that, and champion the morals and what they represent. So it's like, when it comes to the whole, even the good and the evil, even with good, it's not about like talking about like who's better or worse than each other. It's this idea of being able to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And when someone comes out, when demons come knocking at the door, and you have to, they want to kill you, you have to
Yep.
be able to protect yourself. And that idea of, how do we do that, and how do you navigate this world so that, in the end, like we see in the end of Charmed, they won. They
Mm-hmm.
cemented a legacy that championed family and heritage, and, you know, just protecting yourself and standing up for yourself, and it's about empowering not just women but everybody. And that idea that you can protect yourself and you can kind of ward off the evils that come after you in the world. So that's the part of the evil dynamic that I constantly draw from when I look at like the different iterations of the evil, and the way that they kind of try to almost encapsulate different evils in our world. And it's like, well, when you come up in a corporate structure, there might be a plot afoot of people with nefarious intentions, or you'll see the way that people will try and best you to try and further themselves, like warlocks wanting to steal your power so that they become
Mm-hmm.
stronger. It's like there are parallels constantly to the real world.
You have to adapt in order to evolve into survival.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's interesting because that's what the book represents, is the
Mm-hmm.
evolution over generations of women that tell their stories. The book is a collection of knowledge, and to be able to provide a group of young, vulnerable women with the information they need to fight off everything that will come to, hunt them,
Yeah.
and, hold their own and stand up for themselves, is like really important message for anybody, and just to see it lived out, to see these champions, win in the end. It's like, why I love Charmed. It's my favorite
Yay.
aspect of it. So Yeah.
Cool.
So that's my little soapbox speech about all of that. But that's really what I draw from when it's a lens I see the whole show through, and why it has that significant meaning, and the fact that the evil dynamics do like matter to me, because there is sense to be made of it, and it does relate to things that you can really draw from and learn, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess that will be a great way to end our evil segment, our evil section.
Yes.
So we have completed part 1 of the project that we're working on. We will see you for part 2 and 3 with good and neutral, but we'll end with this one today. Where can people follow you on the social medias and find your stuff and buy your stuff and all that goodies?
Well, I have an Etsy shop. It's called Hinkle's Shop. You can go on Etsy and find it. Also Instagram, Hinkle's. My name's Ethan Hinkle, so you can search that and find me on Instagram. Um, and my Patreon. My Patreon is called Hinkles, Hinkles. And if you guys are interested in seeing the book being made and a whole new project and stuff like that, that would be awesome. And I feel like, when it's finished, it's just going to be so, so, so cool. And, all that. So, and I really appreciate you taking the time to let me come on here and talk about this, even though we've got 2 more to go. I'm so excited for those. I feel like the best is even yet to come, because it just
Yeah.
gets juicier. But yeah, so thank you too.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you. I'm so glad you decided to come on, because I really enjoyed talking to you over the last however many times we've been talking, months and stuff. So
Mhm.
now I get to do it live, and it was amazing. So yeah,
It was awesome.
cool. Well, if you're listening, spell worders, see you in part 2. Your destiny still awaits. Blah.